What is going on with this island? And I mean, it's huge and totally unused. I have a sneaking suspicion about what the devs might actually be planning for this island, and I think this could actually be really, really big for the Isle. I think what they're planning is island dwarfism. Well, we know Magyarosaurus is coming to the Isle. We know that it's a dwarf sauropod, and if you don't know anything about this species, it was actually found in the mountains of Transylvania in Romania, which was now, at that time, Hungary. But the point is, at that point in time, that area of land was actually a set of island archipelagos where this dinosaur occurred. So that's the backstory for this species. We're bringing it to the Isle. We've got a big set of islands off the coast of the big island and a series of smaller islands surrounding it. What it would have been at that time is a hot, luscious jungle that was fed from monsoon weather with big mountainous islands. And what do we have in the Isle? Big mountainous islands. So I think Maggie is actually going to go on this island. I think what you're going to have to do is spawn in on the island, and that's probably going to be the only spawn point for Maggie, and I think that's going to make it something special. And I think the idea of island dwarfism would be really, really great for the Isle. Imagine this diverse cast, this diverse environment with this niche sub-ecosystem in the roster. Imagine these sauropods on this island, roaming it, changing its landscape, eating all the food, and then you have a small diverse cast of species on the island with them. Of course, pterosaurs will come and go, but you could imagine like beepies being on the island and they're on the coast, fishing in the lagoons and the coves. You can imagine Dryosaurus now being a bigger role because it's actually being a relatively large dinosaur on these islands. Troodon could be a spawn for this island that could make them a major predator actually compared to what they would be and the playstyle on the main island. If we take the size of the big island, kind of like the shape of the UK, and we take it and cut it out and superimpose it onto the main island, it covers from like South Plains all the way up to like the northern water access. It is a massive expanse of land, and I really, really do think it has potential. If you imagine some larger predators from the mainland are going to try and go grief these smaller players, because you know what people are like. They're going to go over and trying to bully players that they can't fight back and just go on like a massacre. Well, if you think they have to try and swim and island hop these series of islands to get to the main island over here, well, we're going to have Deinosuchus with reniculated kidneys cruising those salt waters. Of course, they're going to be trying to get the dwarf species on this island, but also they'd have to haul themselves up into the hills to get anywhere near them. Likely, they'll be circling around the coast, but won't actually venture up into the hills. So what you're going to then find is any Ceratosaurus or a Carno or whatever that wants to try and island hop to get over to this island to be griefing, well, they're going to have to get past the Deinosuchus that are cruising this sea, which actually I think will make for a much richer Deinosuchus playstyle and actually brings those reniculated kidneys as a mutation more into play and makes it more relevant to be a part of this ecosystem down here. The playstyle of Deinosuchus in this way, I think, will actually maintain the integrity of that island ecosystem to some degree, because it will be a deterrent from your Ceratos and whatnot trying to get across. Now, the island is quite barren right now. If they provide like a freshwater pond and some water access on this island, maybe even make something unique out of it. We see those tunnels. Maybe even there is underwater caves. Maybe there's just underground caves. Perhaps species like Troodon will descend into these caves, and then at night time they emerge into the dark, and all you hear is the whooping and cries of the apex predator of the island being a Troodon, something crazy like that. I think it would definitely suit those players that like a much slower play style, that want to sit around and chat whilst growing an animal slowly, and aren't looking to traverse large areas of land looking for opportunities to get into like a combat situation. Those are the people that want to just chill and play might opt for playing a Maggie on the island and just chilling and growing their slow growing small sauropod. Now, if you remember back in Legacy where you had certain servers would have different species because they were trying to make their own ecosystems, namely separating it between Jurassic and Cretaceous. Well, actually now you have like sub ecosystems in one server, which I think will cater towards that desire of those types of players as well. If you think back to David Attenborough's Planet Dinosaur series, where there was the large quetz-like pterosaurs. I don't think quetz was actually the species, but it's of that type of flying reptile that would island hop and like take out these small dwarf dinosaurs and then be on their way again. That would actually enrich the playstyle of the quetz and actually add a bit more role-playing to those people that want to actually play a bit more like imagining they're in Walking with Dinosaurs or imagining they're in Planet Dinosaur, rather than just playing this combat simulator that other players get a lot out of, but it might not be for them. They could also toy with the idea of a mutation that you can select for being dwarfism. So let's say you had an Omniraptor, but you selected for a mutation for dwarfism, which meant that you would require less food, but you would be like 50% the size. And that might have to be something that they select for when they spawn, and then if you select that, then you can actually spawn on that island. Perhaps it's not a mutation if you have to select it when spawning. Perhaps you can actually select subspecies like you can in other dinosaur simulators. There is also the opportunity, as this game develops and eventually when they want to get in aquatic ecosystems with mosasaurs and things like that, that channel between the island and the main island of the isle is only going to enrich the playstyle of that area and enrich the mini ecosystems that will form in that area. Now, I don't know much about the Isle's lore. I used to be really into it, not so much nowadays. If this is the gateway to a larger island, and this is only meant to be a small island of the whole map, then I don't think island dwarfism of this small island detracts from that whatsoever. There are many, many examples in nature where there are large islands that have animals on it, and even the smaller islands around that island has examples of insular dwarfism. So I don't think it detracts to this island. In fact, I actually think it enriches it, and I think it's going to bring a lot of life to the Isle. The other downside that I see is if we can have a 120 player server and 30-40 of those might be on the dwarfism island, then actually you might find there's less players on the mainland, and that might make it less enjoyable for some people. Or you have the reverse, and this is the sort of thing that might happen, and then no one really enjoys it, and it's only like a handful of people on an island, and it basically feels empty. I think it could actually be a fantastic breeding colony, a breeding grounds for pterosaurs, if they actually increase the spawn rate of crabs on the bottom islands, as well as the sea turtles. I don't know if you've ever seen a crab, but I can tell you I have cruised the entire game as a pterosaur, and I've never seen a crab. I've never seen a crab in this game, ever. So I don't know what that's about, but you would think that crabs on a tropical island, this paradise island with lovely weather, lovely sun, you would have crabs in a bay. But I don't know, I think they should increase the spawning of things like crabs. Maybe they don't with the green sea turtles, but crabs you think would be more abundant than not a single one on the entire island. Many people criticise how Maggie is actually going to fit into the ecosystem. It's actually going to be, and one of the criticisms is going to be that it's going to be a lost playable, in the sense that it doesn't really fit anywhere and it's lost to the wayside, a lot like Hypsy or like a galley, a lot of the species that people don't really play, But I think having this uniqueness of having an island to yourself, if you choose that species, gives it actually a playable purpose. And I think that's what they're going for. Otherwise, why have you made an island that's empty and then bringing in an island specialist, if you will, into the roster going forward? It must be for Maggie. I can't think of any other reason. And it might actually give a bit more purpose to like breeding. Let's say you are a Omni and you get onto the island and you start breeding and you breed for dwarfism, and where that would previously have taken up a slot, your offspring now have more slots for more mutations, and then you start creating this like line of island dwarf omnis. It would allow players to get much more creative, and you'd see certain like forms become apparent in a single server. And I think on private servers, people can have a lot of fun with that. Perhaps you only see one colour form of Omni on the island because that's who bred there. If you like these types of videos, subscribe because there's plenty more of these coming, and I'll see you in the next video.